Hello, Hume 105 Black Thought and Culture. This is Professor Estrada. This is week one feedback. I tend to do these videos to kind of give you feedback on our discussion, give you kind of updates, just kind of give you all shout outs because a lot of you are doing great work. And I honestly want to congratulate all of you on a great start to the quarter. Your thoughts and perspectives are awesome. Some of the dialogue that I'm seeing between you all is just it's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's exactly what we're looking for. There is healthy, beautiful like debate and discussion and discourse, which I think is what we want to capture here. I think I even mentioned in my notes that I took Pamela, Riley, Sophia, Zoe. I love the discussion you all are having. It's very important for us to create discussion and discourse around difficult subjects while respecting each other's perspectives and understanding each other's perspectives, and offering each other a different perspective, because I think that's what a lot of our reading was about, and a lot of you kind of captured perspective and in language, because that's what Frederick Douglass was offering us, and Phyllis Wheatley. What they were offering us were perspectives. But I'm going to get into some of the feedback on the discussion in a second, but I did want to do some sort of house cleaning. One, thank you for your introductions. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it. Be sure to get those in if you haven't. Two, you only have to reply to one classmate per discussion. All right. So each discussion, one classmate. So don't feel obligated. But I do love the fact that you all are replying to more than one. It just shows your interest and dedication to the class and to your education, which I always love, and I congratulate you all on being able to have that time. Another thing I did notice that I'm really starting to like is a lot of you are writing really lengthy reflections and discussion posts. I love it personally. But just know that you don't have to. You don't have to answer every question. You don't have to comment on every aspect of our content. But I do love it. I love that we're talking about poetry, we're talking about music, we're talking about the history, we're talking about the readings, and then we're connecting it to prior knowledge. I think that's dope as hell, man. Like, honestly, I'm really impressed with what you all are bringing to the table. So let's get into the discussion. One of the things that I loved and that I mentioned was about referencing prior knowledge. Christopher and Guyman. If I mispronounce your names, please hit me up and let me know how to pronounce your name properly. I love that you're referencing prior knowledge. All right, you guys referenced Malcolm X, James Baldwin, two people we will discuss in this course, and we'll read some of their perspectives and writings. And I think that's awesome, and I want you all to continue to do that if you feel confident enough to do so. One of the things I do think that we miss on education is when we can connect prior knowledge to something that we're currently learning is a great way to express knowledge and to express understanding of what we're learning. So I thought that was really cool. Many of you were making the connection between the church's role in oppression and the continuance of oppression. I think Zoe and Haley, both of you talked about that for sure. And, I think that's valuable to our discussion here because religion, well, excuse me, man pervades religion in a way that makes religion kind of a part of all of oppression, right? Oppression of culture, oppression of class, oppression of gender, right? And man does that. Religion doesn't necessarily do that itself, right? If we look at the word of God or the word of Allah, or the teachings of Buddha, we can understand that a lot of those teachings aren't about hatred, but about love and understanding and acceptance. But man uses religion as a tool, as a weapon to oppress others, and that was a huge part of not only the transatlantic slave trade, but a lot of our history here in America. And I think we continue to see that today, especially when we're talking about sexual orientation and gender identification. But that's a different conversation for later, because we're going to get into that when we talk about Harlem Renaissance. Bailey and Sarah, I really appreciated your discussion about the conflict with the 4th of July, the holiday. It's one of my favorite holidays. So I love the atmosphere of the holiday, not necessarily the overrepresentation and like sort of like monetization of like patriotism, right? But I love how it brings families and friends together. The nature of the events, it's barbecuing. There's just a free feeling about that celebration of freedom, right? But then you're also processing the history of it now, and connecting it with your current, and it's very conflicting. And I feel that too. I feel that conflict because, I mean, much like I feel the conflict for other holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas, right? Is that the foundations or the theories and ideals about the holidays are wonderful and great, but the history and the practices that are associated with the holidays kind of tarnish it a bit, and there's that conflict there. So that really resonated with me, and I really connected to your feelings, Sarah and Bailey, on that, because I find, a lot of what Frederick Douglass said about the 4th of July, and hold on, let me look at my notes here. Avery, I believe your name is, talked about the language, right? And that language really kind of captures, I think, how a lot of people of color feel about certain holidays, right? Avery, you talked about the language of Frederick Douglass choosing your and you, right? This is your celebration, your national independence, right? Your political freedom, right? And kind of reinforcing his thoughts on how the celebration is for them, and that they're not a part of that, and that it's not enjoyed in commonality. And I think one of the reasons why I chose this reading first for us is because it symbolizes what we're trying to do in this course, is we're trying to understand a different perspective, right? And so we're not taking our perspective and forcing it on someone else per se. What we're trying to do here is understand how, regardless of how we view an event or we view a holiday or we view a situation, right? That doesn't mean it's necessarily right or wrong, right? There are different experiences in America and different perspectives on the same situations. And so we have to, at the very least, hear and understand those perspectives, right? And respect that someone is having a totally different experience in the same space about the same things that we are. And I think that's something that a lot of people I think most people can empathize with, right? Feeling, I mean, high school is one of those big spaces where you have some people that are just like, oh, high school was amazing, I loved my experiences. And then you have others who are like, high school was a fucking shit show. I can't stand this space. Pardon my language. I tend to curse a little more than some people desire, but my apologies ahead of time. It's just like some people loathe high school and can't wait to get out, right? Does it make both of those things, any less true? No, I don't think so. I just think that some people, based on situations, get to experience a totally different world, even though they're sharing the same space as someone else. Kiara, you brought up a valid point about Frederick Douglass's speech about how he didn't want to argue that slaves are human. And I think that's important to note, because he made it he wanted to make it evident that wasn't why he was here that day, and that wasn't important to his discussion, right? We're not here to discuss whether black people are human or not, whether slaves are human or not. We understand that they are, right? As you said, if they weren't human, why would they create laws to restrict them from certain things? They don't do that for animals, Okay, even though they were, excuse me, even though they were compared to or lesser than animals during the time period. And so it's a really important point to this discussion because it further supports the hypocrisy of everything, right? And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with learning, which has become a theme in a lot of my courses, is the history we were never taught, or the history you, me, were never taught in spaces where we feel like we should have. And there's this struggle to really understand this history, to say to ourselves, wow, this really happened, and there's still connections to this. And so as we start to understand that there's a lot of hypocrisy in it, you start to question the world around you, and I think that's valuable and important. James, we'll talk about James Baldwin, but one of the things that James Baldwin said is to be to be a person of color and relatively conscious in America is to be in a fit of rage all of the time. But in present time, I think that extends to anyone. To be American and to be relatively conscious of the world around you, it can put you into a fit of rage almost all the time. And you can find things that you're angry about, upset about, disgusted by all of the time. But I hope we can kind of work through those frustrations because I want us to be prepared for these contemporary social issues that we're dealing with. Lanika, you mentioned something about Frederick Douglass writing and really, Frederick Douglass and Colin Kaepernick sharing their thoughts and perspectives in the hopes that there will be a change of mind and a change of heart. And I really feel like that's what many Americans are hoping for, regardless of color, is a change of mind and a change of heart. I think most, if not all, can agree that we would like a little more joy, a little more connectivity, a bit more community in the world around us. I think it's quite stressful to be at points of conflict with people in our neighborhoods, people in our cities, in our counties, in our states, in our country, and I think a lot of it has to do with a change of mind and change of heart. And so courses like this are about providing you with the tools, providing you with the information that may influence you to have a change of mind and or a change of heart. And I hope you find that here. So Lanika, thank you for pointing that out. Aiden, you talked about the hypocrisy of sort of our patriotism here, our songs, our documents, our language. And I really think that's kind of the point of Frederick Douglass's speech about what the fourth is to the slave, and Colin Kaepernick's sort of kneeling against the national anthem is the hypocrisy of the things. It's not that they don't believe in America or that they don't necessarily love America. It's not that they don't support our troops or support our goals as a country. It's just a simple fact that the things that are being said, the language that is being used, isn't necessarily being supported with actions. And that's troubling, right? I don't think that's any different than how we treat our relationships, right? If someone consistently tells you one thing, but they don't follow through, we don't tend to gravitate towards those people. We don't tend to trust them. We don't necessarily want to be close to them anymore. Most, if not all of us, will end relationships in that way, right? This person continues to tell me things that they're going to do and they never do them. I can't trust that level of inconsistency. I'm leaving. And I think that's a lot of the feelings of the black community and people of color is, we're hearing these things and we're trying to support and align with these thoughts and beliefs, but we are burned on the other side without genuine action in support of these beliefs. You also made it, Aiden. You also made a connection to Frederick Douglass's perspectives on religion and his own personal religious beliefs, which I thought was important. And we've really talked about religion, and I think religion will be a constant part of our conversations. And I hope that in these conversations we can have genuinely healthy dialogue about religion, because religion isn't bad. It's those who pervade religion, those who use religion as a tool and as a weapon. Corey, you talked about the sense of the hope in music, and while also discussing that there was sorrow and grief in the music. And I want you all to know that music for the Black community is a source of healing. African Americans endured, as Christopher mentioned, hundreds of years of trauma, and that trauma is passed down generationally, and we have research to support that perspective now. Yet, despite having hundreds of years of trauma being passed down and being perpetuated, we don't have hundreds of years of mental health support and accessibility. And so, in order to escape, to find refuge, to heal in that trauma, the Black community turned to music. And so, what Corey mentioned is you do hear hope, right, in that music. You also hear the sorrow and grief, and that is the process of healing for Black people, which is why I think Black communities are so hurt and turned off by sort of the stealing of music or styles or swagger and culture, is that these things were used as a way for Black people to heal, to process their pain without turning to violence. And yet, it's been taken away, or it's been, sort of gentrified in ways. Finally, Corinne, you made a wonderful connection to the content in our current justice system and the right to a fair trial. And again, I as an English professor, I love how so many of you are connecting the language, right? Because language is so important. Language is, if you were in my 102 class, you understand how valuable and important language is. We hold control of language. We get to determine whether language lives or dies, as Toni Morrison says. And I think what we're noticing is that in a lot of this language, it's being used for evil, and language is dying in that way, right? When we use language for evil, we don't just harm the people involved. We harm the future of people involved. We harm the future of language, and we diminish the opportunities for healing. But honestly, I am just overwhelmed and overjoyed and impressed by all of you. I'm so happy to be in this space with you. You all are doing a wonderful job. Keep it up. Some of these weeks have a lot of content to go through. Always stick to the main content. The supplemental content is always for if you have time. The playlists are mostly for you to experience and enjoy. But I also love your thoughts about that. But if you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out to me. I love doing this. I love helping you all, the students. I am available. I know this video is long, and every week won't be this long, and you don't have to watch these videos. But if you do, please feel free to hit me up about anything you hear here. I'm glad to talk with you more in depth, beyond the classroom, the discussion, because some of you just need more than that, and sometimes so do I. So thank you for your time. I'm Professor Estrada, and everyone have a wonderful week.